She licks her lips and then opens up her ravine, telling him to make her feel good too. He begins to do her while she's on all fours and says that her insides are twitching, which causes her to blush. Welcome back to AniRecapz. Like and subscribe so you never miss our quality uploads. The story begins with a bit of backstory about the world. Like a certain monster girl Dr. Anime, there was once the unending conflict between many races of fantastical creatures and humans. However, hundreds of years have passed since those days, and the races now live in harmony. Our story takes place in a quiet neighborhood called Yoyagi Heights, a yukai-exclusive apartment complex that's quite popular due to its proximity to a nearby park, school, and spa. The owner of this complex recently passed away, leaving all responsibilities to his son Takahashi. MC is a live-in manager and spends a lot of his free time on the internet and listening to music. It's a pretty chill job, and he finds it much better than working overtime in a traditional job. One day, as he's walking through the halls, he encounters a well-endowed woman called Mifuyu Yukino, the tenant in room 503. She's carrying a large box and MC helps her carry them downstairs. They strike up a conversation. Yukino apologizes for having him help, and MC thinks about how pretty she is, as any man would likely do. But before anything else can happen, he suddenly has a cramp in his arm as a result of carrying that heavy box. Yukino asks if he's okay and offers to take a look. When she touches his hand, a chill spreads around the area, causing the pain to quickly disappear. Yukino is, in fact, a Yuki-onna, which is why she has cool powers. As MC looks at her, surprised, she blushes and tells him it wasn't a big deal. He replies, telling her it's just his first time meeting a real Yuki-onna, which she understands because normally they don't reveal their identities. She's also not very good at making conversation, since she worries too much about what the other person will think of her. She then drops a bombshell on our bachelor MC. She's married, but it turns out that bombshell was a dud, because her husband passed away 2 years ago. Their conversation comes to an end, and they part ways. MC runs into her again later, realizing she's late on rent. She tells him she'll pay next month, but she's been late for many months already, and he might have to evict her soon. He wants to help her and tries to urge her to move on and not dwell on her past husband, but she's quite cold towards him and freezes him in place before angrily shutting the door on him. However, ever since, he keeps running into her. For example, when they met on the elevator, her cheeks puffed out and she opted to take the stairs instead. MC wonders what he did wrong, and several weeks soon pass. Then, while laying on the ground in exasperation, MC sees a sealed package under a table in his room. It belonged to his late father, and he finds a suspicious ring inside with an eye on it. Accompanying the ring are a set of instructions. In short, it's a mind control ring that allows its user to control the mind of any yukai in view of the ring. Most suspiciously, the rest of the paper has been corroded and is unreadable. I wonder if that will be important. Nevertheless, MC goes to Yukino's room and knocks on the door, intending to help her sign an application for rent subsidies. Sure, I totally believe that. Anyways, when Yukino opens the door, he lifts the ring and makes her look at it, before suggesting they talk about the application inside. There's an ominous flash and Yukino seems to be completely in a trance. MC asks her to sign in various places on the form, but as he is making small talk, he asks her what she does in her free time. She tells him that she plays with herself, which surprises MC. She reveals Yuki Onna doesn't get pregnant and her drive has been increasing every year. Yukino further tells him she doesn't have any children and doesn't have experience with any men other than her late husband. Realizing the ring is legit, MC allows his third leg to do the thinking and asks her to show him her mounds. She obliges and lifts up her shirt, showing off her soft, bouncy melons. He hesitates only a moment before touching them, rubbing them, and playing with her skittles. They've gotten quite hard due to his touch, and as he begins to suck on them, they go from their normal coldness to a gentle warmth. She's blushing furiously and he shifts his attention down to her ravine, slipping his hand into her pants and immediately starting with two. His movements cause her to make quite a few lewd sounds, and MC is surprised at how wet it's gotten. Yukino confesses she normally does it multiple times a day, and MC rewards her honesty by bringing her to the first climax of the story, causing a river of liquid to spray out of her ravine. MC pushes her back onto a table and holds her legs apart before licking her ravine like a cat, inserting his tongue deep inside of her. It's the best frozen sweet he's ever had, and he wants to taste more of it. He licks it repeatedly until she arrives at the second climax of the story, at which point her ravine is overflowing. Now, MC decides he's ready to go whitewater rafting. His canoe's wood hardens and he pushes himself into those waters. Like any captain will tell you, once those waters have you, they'll never let you go. His canoe is gripped by the inside of the ravine, and he calls out Yukino's name, the warmth of her insides pulling him in and tightening around his canoe. It feels so good he doesn't ever want to stop, and he has her stand up a little to present her ravine for better rafting. At this, the ravine tightens even more, and he asks if his canoe feels good. He calls her a bad girl with such a cute face, and more fluids drip out at those words. She's bent forward on the table, his hand in her mouth, as Yukino makes an exceptionally lewd face. She's moaning, and MC tells her those 2 years alone must have built up a lot of desire in her, and he tells her she can feel as good as she wants today. He then pulls her in for a deep kiss, with his canoe still lost deep in her ravine. MC tells her that he misunderstood her, thinking that she could never forget about her husband. Instead, she was just a frustrated Yukino not overflowing with desire. He tells her that he likes her when she's lewd and tells her to be his, saying that he'll support her. MC's hydro flask pops open and the ravine becomes flooded with milk. Their bodies tense up as the rafting adventure comes to a fruitful end, the ravine overflowing with his thick white milk. The next day, MC and Yukino meet outside a small dessert shop, and MC realizes that she doesn't remember what happened. He instead just apologizes for being inconsiderate towards her dead husband and says he only wants her to be happy. She sighs, thanks him for caring, and said she might forgive him if he buys her some cream puffs. In his defense, he already gave her tons of that, if you know what I mean. Later that night, MC does a bit of research about the ring. It turns out the ring once belonged to a shrine that was torn down long ago. It gives off a bad feeling and puts strange thoughts in MC's head, causing him to feel unusually high levels of desire. Really, I think he's just being a young man. Anyways, MC has been using the ring over and over to go rafting in Yukino's ravine, and even though he initially just wanted to help her, he now wants to have a serious relationship with her. As Yukino is taking a bath, she's repeatedly playing with herself, but she's not satisfied. When MC shows up, she immediately rushes over to hug him, believing that he's her lover. MC brought her a nice gift of cream puffs, and the two ate in her living room. He tells her if she needs anything else, she should tell him. What he does not realize is, Yukino is actually not under the effects of the ring right now. She asks him to kiss her, and then tells him to go to bed together. Her body feels like it's burning up, and she disrobes quickly, wearing only a revealing set of black laundry. She pushes him against a wall. Yukino tells him to kiss her as deeply as he can, their tongues playing with each other. She rests a hand on his pants, slowly stroking his canoe. She tells him it's hard before pulling down his pants. There's a nice popsicle there, and she begins to suck on it to quench her heat. He's also beginning to feel hot, so she blows on him to cool him down. MC can't believe the normal Yukino would ever do this, unaware that this is actually the normal Yukino. Her ravine begins to drip as she plays with the popsicle, sucking on it until he comes to a realization. His lower half is melting. She keeps on going, however, completely entranced in her desires. MC tells her to stop, and she apologizes, saying the popsicle was just too delicious. She licks her lips and then opens up her ravine, telling him to make her feel good too. He begins to do her while she's on all fours, and says that her insides are twitching, which causes her to blush. Really? Of all things, this is what makes her embarrassed. He sits inside the ravine and begins to pound a rock with his hammer, causing Yukino to make yet more lewd faces. Her melons and her rear are soft to the touch, and she's incredibly warm inside. MC forces her to show him her lewd face as her ravine continuously drips with juice. MC wants to make her feel good, but her ravine has been continuously tightened around his canoe to the point that it's beginning to dry up. Yukino kisses him passionately, her body clinging to him, as she tells him that she won't let go of him today. On the bed, the two continue to play. She tells him he's hitting a good spot, and MC asks if she's feeling good, to which she moans a quivering yes. He tries to be a good wilderness explorer and asks where he should dump his milk. She tells him to put it inside the ravine, and he empties an entire packet of milk there. As they lay together passionately, they happily stay in that position for quite some time, her ravine overflowing with his milk. They even do it against the sliding glass door, with all of Yukino's clothes long forgotten. He empties load after a load of milk into the ravine until she falls asleep, letting out small pink pants. MC's exhausted now and goes to take a shower and leave, only for Yukino to enter the shower with him, apologizing for the wait. She wants more. MC tries to get her to stop, using the ring to control her, but unfortunately for him, its effects are no longer useful. In fact, Yukino becomes obsessed with what MC said earlier. They belong together. She's even more excited than earlier, and MC begins to feel a bit scared. He tells her that it's late and they should rest for the day, but there's no effect. She pushes him down and tells him she'll make him feel good. As the old saying goes, visit the ravine before the ravine visits you. Yukino can't think of anything other than playing with MC, and despite his pleas to rest, her ravine visits his canoe, completely drowning it. When he tells her to stop, she pouts and teases him, telling him that she just came to visit him and that she just wants him to feel better and better. She's now the one on top, despite telling him that she likes it when he's blaming her for things. Yukino wants to fill her ravine with his milk, and she won't stop visiting his canoe until she's satisfied. By then, MC nearly passes out on his bed. He's confused. Why didn't the ring work? Too much of a good thing can be bad, and he felt like he was going to die. He gets a strange feeling, and he looks down to see that the ring has started to become part of his body, like it's trying to hide from something. Then, behind him, Yukino appears. Ominous wisps of cold float along the floor. MC's eyes widen. He barely gets a chance to turn. You see, she wasn't satisfied. She never was. And like the Yuki Onna of lore, her victims never realize their fates are sealed. Because like a winter storm or a blushing bride, you'll never see her coming. With this, we end our video. Stay tuned for the next part and watch our other quality contents. There will be more upcoming parts from this doujinchi's author, and we'll be recapping them all once they get a nice English translation. For example, part 2 is already here in Japanese, but since we are waiting for a good English translation to come, it's taking time to produce part 2 recap. Also, keep in mind that it may also take a year or more for parts 3, 4, and more to come, so hold strong and stay subscribed. You don't need to worry as we'll be setting our priority to max.
それでは私が得をしすぎか。そうだ、前の奥方と別れてかなり経つであろう。よければ夜の相手もしてやるぞ。
にも少しは格好をつけさせてくれ。
Source: Inspector Season 2. On top of a snowy mountain, a man is pushed to his death by his best friend. He lands at the bottom of a hole and realizes that there is no way he can climb out. He accepts his fate. Suddenly, a woman dressed in white appears before him. The man thinks he has died. The man, Masayuki, lies unable to move as the woman explains that she is a Yuki Onna. We will call her Yuki. Masayuki complains that Yuki Onna are meant to be more beautiful than Yuki. It's like he has a death wish. Yuki explains that she intends to save Masayuki and creates an igloo for Masayuki to survive the night. She takes half of his money as payment and teases him a little before leaving him to survive until morning. Once it is morning, Yuki comes to check on Masayuki and is happy to see that he is alive. She carries Masayuki in her arms and flies across the mountains. While in the air, Yuki threatens to kill Masayuki if he tells anyone about her existence. Masayuki promises to keep her existence a secret. Masayuki arrives at the police station while his friend was giving a false report to the police. Masayuki has his friend arrested for attempted murder. After interrogation, Masayuki's friend confesses that he did it out of jealousy because the girl he liked was in love with Masayuki. He broke the bro code. Masayuki stares at the mountains and vows to never go mountain climbing again. A couple of years later, Masayuki runs into Yuki in the street. She is having ice cream and he sits next to her. He recounts the story of the events that happened on the mountain and Yuki gets angry saying, "Didn't I say I would kill you if you told anyone?" Masayuki explains that since it was her that he told, then it didn't count. Masayuki offers to treat Yuki to human food as thanks for what she did in the past. Yuki likes the idea and follows Masayuki to his house. On the way home, Masayuki explains his unfortunate circumstances to Yuki. Masayuki has had bad experiences with people. He had been betrayed by his colleagues, lost his company, and divorced his wife after she tried to kill him. This guy is really unlucky when it comes to relationships. Masayuki is now unable to trust people easily except for Yuki because she is not a person. Yuki asks if he has enough money, but Masayuki reassures her that he is still rich. Later, Masayuki and Yuki go to a grocery store together to buy some food to share. Masayuki has fun cooking and eating all sorts of food with Yuki. Maybe his life isn't so bad. 4 months go by and Masayuki is seen talking to a woman on the phone. At least he has one friend he trusts. He tells the woman his plans for the night. He is going to spend the night alone and doesn't intend to start a new company. Downstairs, Yuki eats a lot of hot food. Masayuki wonders how Yuki, who is a snow yokai, can eat hot food and not melt. Yuki explains that Yuki Onnas are simply built differently. Yuki tells Masayuki about the goddess of wisdom. Masayuki asks if the goddess would approve of their relationship. Yuki tells him that their relationship is approved, but if trouble were to arise, then she was instructed to freeze him to death. Masayuki is shocked and yells, "That is too violent." Yuki wonders if she is taking advantage of Masayuki a little too much and offers to give him some nightly service. Masayuki is shocked by the complete lack of morals in Yuki's seduction. He tries to decline. He doesn't think the goddess would approve of it, but Yuki states that the goddess is okay with it, so long as they use protection. Protection is very important. A few days later, Yuki is reading a book when the doorbell rings. Yuki excitedly tells Masayuki to answer the door as it could be the food they ordered for their meal. When Masayuki opens the door, however, it is not food that greets him, but 2 police officers. The police officers inform him that he is currently suspected of murdering his ex-wife. The policemen share the details of Masayuki's ex-wife's murder. She was killed by the riverbed with a blunt object, and on her hand were the first letters of Masayuki's name. Masayuki states that he had nothing to do with the murder and hadn't even spoken to his ex-wife in over a year. The police officers reveal that they know that Masayuki's ex-wife had tried to kill him. Masayuki explains that she had drugged him while he was driving trying to make him crash, but by luck he had stopped at his office when the drug took effect. The police suspect Masayuki because even after his wife attempted to kill him, he did not report her and instead tried to cover it up. It is very suspicious. Masayuki explains that the justice system does not do much against attempted murder, so if he had tried to charge her, it would have led nowhere. The police officers also show him a letter written by his ex-wife saying, "If I die strangely, then Masayuki is to blame, arrest him," and a photo which looks like him and his ex-wife going to a grocery store, but we know that this is actually Yuki, who happens to look like his ex-wife. The police officers take Masayuki to the police station for a while and Yuki waits for his return. When Masayuki returns, Yuki states that he could not be the killer because he had been with her at the time of the murder. Masayuki tells her that she cannot testify for him because she is a yokai. He has no alibi, making him even more suspicious. Also, the fact that he was seen with Yuki, who looks like his ex-wife, does not make matters better. Yuki asks why he married a woman that looked just like her, and Masayuki confessed that it was because he had never forgotten the face of Yuki and secretly fell in love with her. Yuki is a little flustered by this. Masayuki gets up and resolves to find the culprit on his own to prove his innocence. Yuki gets angry and berates him for always trying to do things on his own. Yuki tries to comfort Masayuki by feeding him and getting him to rest. As Masayuki is about to fall asleep, Yuki jumps up realizing that she can ask the goddess of wisdom for help. 9 days later, as Masayuki is drying out some fish, Yuki runs in to announce that the goddess has arrived. The two head deep into the mountains to meet the goddess. They arrive at the entrance of a cave where the goddess, Kotoko, awaits. They meet with Kotoko and thank her for coming. Yuki asks where Kotoko's boyfriend, Kuro, is, and Kotoko goes on a long rant about why he declined to come with her, making her visibly angry. While the goddess rants, the bunny-like creatures offer Yuki and Masayuki a seat. After completing her rant, the goddess shows her suspicion of Masayuki and begins to accuse him of committing the murder and deliberately creating the situation to manipulate Yuki into helping him. Yuki asserts that Masayuki is not capable of making such an evil plan and pleads on his behalf. The goddess then reveals that all of her accusations were a lie. Deception 100 strikes again. The goddess states that a man who would not succumb to advances from Yuki would not be capable of such an evil plan. So she was just making baseless accusations for her amusement. Masayuki is shocked by her complete lack of morals. He asks what will be done about the real culprit, but then the goddess reveals that she knows who the culprit is. Before the goddess reveals the culprit, she explains that Masayuki was no longer suspected by the police and was likely not going to be arrested. The goddess explains that Masayuki's ex-wife was not robbed or violated in any way. This means it couldn't have been a random murder. But if it were Masayuki who killed her, she would have used the letter she had written as a threat to save herself. And if he still killed her, he would have tried to hide the body more carefully. In addition, after killing her, he would want to get rid of all evidence. He would have to go search her apartment for the letter, and in the process, leave more evidence behind. In addition, when Masayuki was questioned by the police, he was unable to answer immediately. If he had committed the crime, he would have already thought of an alibi and would have answered immediately. The police realize that Masayuki does not seem to have been involved and are currently looking into other suspects. On the hand that had part of Masayuki's name was written, it can be assumed that the real murderer was the one who wrote the name on the hand. Though no one knew about his ex-wife's attempted murder, so there was no reason for anyone to target her. The culprit would have to be someone who knew about all the circumstances, knew about Masayuki's situation, and knew where he was and how to frame him. But Masayuki doesn't talk to anyone and doesn't have any friends. Oh wait, the phone lady. Masayuki really has terrible luck with his friends. The woman, Izuku Nagisa, is the one responsible for trying to frame Masayuki. Masayuki appears to be taking the news very hard after all the last person he trusted betrayed him. In a flashback, we see that Izuku's previous call was done to make sure that Masayuki would not have an alibi. Izuku then went to his ex-wife's workplace and persuaded her to go to the riverbed. One question remains, why did she do it? The answer to that is simple, she is a yandere. Izuku had wanted Masayuki to be blamed for the murder and become isolated from society. Then she would snatch him up for herself. Truly, this is the best way to shoot your shot. Get your crush arrested, then swoop in while they are depressed. The goddess reveals that she accused him at first only to make the truth more bearable for him. Masayuki feels terrible hearing that his friend did that, but Yuki puts her hand on his lap to calm him down, and he realizes that he can still put his trust in Yuki at least. The goddess tells Masayuki that she approves of his relationship with Yuki and wishes them both happiness. Yuki is very happy to hear that the goddess approves and hugs Masayuki. The two share a touching moment together before the goddess interrupts. She stresses the importance of contraception. She does not want 10 human Yuki-Onna hybrids running around. A bottle is dropped, and from behind a rock, MC appears. Yuki is scared when she sees him and runs to Masayuki for safety. Masayuki does not see what is so scary about the boy, but Yuki tells him that in comparison to Kuro, Masayuki's was precious. Masayuki blushes slightly after hearing this. Yuki wants to leave and asks if there is anything she can do to thank the goddess. The goddess simply replies that the mood was optimal, so they should hurry up and spend the night together. Masayuki calls her vulgar, and Yuki carries him away into the night sky. A giant beast appears to take Kuro and the goddess Kotoko home. Kuro helps Kotoko onto the beast's back, and the beast flies into the night. They talk about Masayuki's life and joke that maybe he was destined to be loved by the wicked and has put his life in danger time and time again. If anything were to go wrong with Yuki, she might freeze him to death. Kuro tells Kotoko that she is similar in that way. Back to Masayuki and Yuki. Masayuki thinks that even though they have different values and lifespans, that he wants to enjoy the time he has with Yuki as he grabs hold of her hand.